Hi everyone, and welcome to this special collaborative live stream. So, whether you are tuning in right now via my channel at The Quiet Learner, or you are joining us from Dogs at the Sensei podcast, we are absolutely thrilled to have you here. Today is the 1st of May, and this officially is Labor Day or Workers' Day in Nigeria. And for the first and foremost, happy Labor's Day, happy Workers' Day to everyone watching, whether you are a student, a university lecturer, professional, or whoever is going to replay this later, or whether you are trying to figure out your next big career move. Today, I'm co-hosting with Professor Daniel Don Nwibo, and my own career journey has taken me from New Zealand for my PhD, from Nigeria to New Zealand for my PhD, then over to the UK to work in biophysics at the National Synchrotron facility, and most recently pivoting into this UK space sector. And I am honored to be sharing the screen today with a brilliant former colleague, Professor Daniel Don Nwibo. So Daniel went from Nigeria to Japan for his master's and PhD as a highly competitive MEXT scholar, and he completed postdocs in both Japan and the UK before making the bold decision to move back to Nigeria. I think people call it reverse Japa, reverse immigration. So where he is now, he's a professor of
Wait,
pharmacology.
wait, wait. We call it Jakpada. The other one is
Ah,
Jakpa, the other one is Jakpada.
welcome, Prof. Welcome to today's
Thank you.
live stream. I hope it's going to be really, really educative. For me, I'm also here to learn, in as much as I'm here to also communicate. But first and foremost, I always say that I'm here to learn. So as we celebrate Labor Day, we know that the Japa wave is on everyone's mind, almost everyone's mind. And sometimes after probably an election, we see sort of a fresh wave of that Japa. But today we want to look beyond just packing up and leaving a country. We are framing today's conversation around purposeful movement, not just moving, but moving purposefully, okay? Creating global impact and mastering career agility. It's about moving with intention. And so it's good to see you. And yeah, welcome to today's live. So how are you doing today? I think we've already said that at the beginning. Morals are your low. Okay. So our first section is going to be on research and academia. Okay.
But you didn't tell us that you made a first class at the University of Nigeria. I think that was the beginning of your
It's on the
journey.
flyer. It's on the flyer.
It's on the flyer.
That's so many years ago. But to be fair, does it really matter in today's labor market though? Do all those things really matter?
No, let me tell you the truth. The truth is, he gave you the mitochondria for the first move. Every other
But
thing
you
had
do
followed. Didn't
I do agree, except that there are
didn't
also people who have made such excellent degrees, but I think they've not been able to adapt to changing trends in the future of work. So that's why I would always tell my friends that I prefer being street smart to being academic smart. Yeah. So I don't even remember that I made a first class. To be fair, I don't remember it. I try not to remember it. Because what's the point of that if one does not know how to be flexible and to be able to adapt and pivot when needed, so to say. So our first section is research and academia. We're going to talk about books now. I'm going to start with the question, and then you're going to flip back and ask me the next question. Okay, so let's take it back to the beginning. Prof, you secured the highly competitive Japanese MEXT Scholarship for your master's and PhD in Japan. And so for the students who are watching or who will come back to replay this video, what was the application process like? Not just application, but people who supported you. What was the experience, so to say, like? And
well,
what made your profile? And what made your profile to stand out?
I think for students who would watch us, and it's an honor to be here.
Thank
I'm
you.
Daniel by name, and Chidinma, it's always great to share points with you. I remember when we were growing up at the then I remember when we used to teach. I think you used to attend Chem 101 class when we were first year. And then after that, I heard over to you. You guys continued with the T. You forgot? Yeah, thank you,
Oh yes,
101
of
class.
course. That was tutorials, right? Yeah,
Yes,
tutorial.
microscopes. Then I handed over to you.
Mm.
You guys continue. I did a fantastic job when I was the second year, teaching the
Yeah.
first years, which is great. So, well, the movement to Japan, I had moved from Japan to the US at the point to the UK, at the point to the US, even though US was very short lived because of the
Oh,
kind of
okay.
program I had to do, all of them. But more importantly is if you have traveled around the globe like I've been to almost over 28 countries, you understand that the first country you ever traveled to will always stick to your mind.
Mm.
Yes. The places you were in New Zealand, look back, you realize that the impressions you had about New Zealand when you entered remained very green up to today. Even though
Yeah.
you're in the UK, you probably don't even regard things in the UK because they are quite similar in terms of development. But
Mm.
when you transition from nothing to such an affluent and environment, it remains
Mm.
very green. Yes.
Mm.
So I had finished from the University of Nigeria. I went for service
Mm.
and then I came back. When I came back, I spent some few months. I think moving on, I applied for several scholarships. I got three of them at once, I remember. There were three scholarships, three of them at once.
All in
One was,
Japan or
no,
okay.
it wasn't in Japan. Not all in
Okay.
Japan. Sorry. There was one in Cambridge, in the UK, I
Okay.
remember. The University of Cambridge. It was in molecular chemistry. I was going to do masters in molecular chemistry.
Amazing.
And then there was one, yes, there was one in, I think, Toronto University. I think Toronto University was medical biochemistry, masters. And then there was the one in Japan
Mm.
that had to take me through the medical line again, which I picked. Even though
Mm.
people thought it was just masters. No, I didn't just start at masters. I did some other programs to keep up because I shifted completely into medical pharmacology. And
Wow.
the trainings are quite different. It's not like it is here. But then we moved on and
Did you have to learn it
finished
in
it.
Japanese?
Fantastic question. Very interesting question. That question is fantastic because there was something I was trying to dodge, which you brought up. And that is the fact that the first few months I went to Japan, I didn't even know how to say come in Japanese. Even to come or go, I don't know. The food was strange.
Wow.
Everything was strange. And then we in Japan, when you get to Japan, particularly in the top universities, Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Nagoya, and
Yeah.
Keio universities, they're the top five in the country anyway. You would have to go to the Japanese school for at least 4 months. It's
Wow.
non-negotiable. And within that period, the government will be paying you your scholarship. Nothing will be
Wow.
stopped. But you're doing no research, you're doing no academic work. Within that period, you also prepare for an entrance exam because without passing that entrance exam, they will deport you back to your country. Remember, my scholarship was fully funded by the Japanese government. And
Wow.
so we did that. Then we began our academic work. The question now to the question you asked, whether I learned it in Japanese. There
Yeah.
were some courses we did that were, there were some courses we did that were fully in Japanese. And then there were some courses we did that were fully in English. So the
Mm.
implication of that is for the courses in Japanese, you might struggle. But the ones that are fully in Japanese in English, you do very well. Within that 4 months, the Japanese system is so regimented that everything about the language from the alphabet first, because Japanese has three basic system of communication:
Mm.
the kanji, the hiragana, and the katakana. Those things mean
Mm.
different things. If you're non-Japanese like myself, they will never write your name in kanji. The kanji is like their culture, which is the Chinese characters. They will write your name in hiragana, okay?
Wow.
Because your name has no
Mm.
Chinese
No
interpretation.
bearing.
It has no
Yeah.
bearing in their life. So they'll write it in katakana. Okay.
Wow.
But the beautiful thing is the support you need, we're always there. That's
Mm.
the beautiful thing. The support you need, any support you need was always available for you. And that's
Sounds
the
like
difference
an
between
open,
education there and
welcoming. Sounds like an open, welcoming environment.
it was. It was. It was.
Wow.
To the effect that everybody in the system where I worked in the department knew I arrived. From the airport, I was assigned someone to take care of me. And the person came to the airport to wait for me. Took me
Wow.
from the airport to where my room has been allocated. And then I got to the room. Everything was in the room. About four pots, a stove, a bag of rice, a bread that was made that day. cream, soap, new, all of them new, not ever has been used. Towel,
Wow.
bed, pillow, duvet, anything you practically need to be comfortable.
Mm.
The reason is that they know you are coming from your country and you're not supposed to come with
Yeah.
anything apart
Yeah.
from your clothes and probably food.
Mm.
Pen, pen, paper, notebooks. They were all there. Printers in the room.
Wow.
It was a bedroom, a room and parlor, and then kitchen, and of course toilet and all that.
Mm.
I just told you that they even bought soap and kept, and they said, if anyone you don't like, just keep it aside. We'll come and take it later. But it's all for you,
Wow.
and they're all new. You open the door, it's new. The light comes on. They will tell you this is the lightning system, and they'll tell you bye
Mm.
bye. If you need help, press here, and they will come back to help. That's how equipped they were. That's how the University of Tokyo trained me. And then the next morning, I go to by 7 o'clock. That was when I learned how to keep to time. Being a Nigerian, coming from Nigeria, from the rusty zone of
Mm.
Osaka. The next morning, the young man who was supposed to come and pick me tells me, Daniel, he speaks very barely little English, very communicative level of English. Daniel, I will
Wow.
come to you by 7 o'clock in the morning. And then I said, okay, I know that one thing I heard about Japan is that they keep to time. So by 6:30, I was ready. I sat down on the bed waiting for him to come. Remember, there was also a table, a reading table, and the reading light and everything in the room. So I
Mm.
sat down there. By 6:59, pop, 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 pop on the door. Accurately, no mistake. I opened the door. He was the one. I picked my bag and I followed him. And then we entered the train. The first time in train anyway. Went to the
Mm.
lab, which was almost an hour away. And the professor, 8 a.m. 8 a.m., the professor was already waiting for me.
Oof.
The whole lab was full waiting for me. 8 a.m., everybody.
Wow. 8
Then in
a.m.
Nigeria,
though?
8 a.m., and it was April. I entered Japan April 3rd. We entered there. I met the old man, almost 68, at a very big lab, over 50 people at different levels, associate professors,
Mm.
full professor, was the oldest. He welcomes me and takes me around. Something shocked me. The man takes me to a table. It was written Daniel Nwibo in white, printed in black ink, pasted on the table. The table had compartments. Then on top of it is a MacBook, a Mac tabletop. There was also a Mac laptop, and there was also a Mac iPad. All of them
Wow.
on it written Nwibo Daniel, Nwibo Daniel, Nwibo Daniel. And then they told me to open the drawer. I opened the drawer. There was a 20 gig flash drive. And then there was an extension wire, extension. All that is to make my work. I'm telling this story
Wow.
because I want us to understand how education works. Imagine
Mm.
me who barely afforded a computer in school is now having to have a tabletop MacBook, a tabletop laptop, and then a MacBook iPad, plus everything needed. And they said, that is for me. Everything there is for me. They said,
Mm.
the laptop and the iPad, anywhere in Japan, I take it to. If I like, move from Lagos to Maiduguri. When you get to Maiduguri,
Wow.
open the laptop. As it comes on, internet will come on it. That's how it's
Oh,
programmed.
oh. Wow.
And from that place I am, you can access any library in the world for free. Any library.
Ooh.
So if there's any published paper, whether it's in Nature or Cell, those high impact
Wow.
factor papers, it doesn't matter how
Mm.
much it is already done. So that's it. Let me not tell the story too long. Then I got into the supervision. I just told you that 4 months into the first 4 months, there was no academic work. It was all about preparing
Mm.
for the
Yeah,
entrance
yeah,
exam.
yeah. You mentioned.
Yeah. It was all about preparing for the entrance exam. It was all about studying the Japanese. You must come to the lab every day. Of course, that one was Shobanka. What else am I doing with my life than to be in the lab every day? Now, there's one thing that misses in our educational system I'm going to talk about, and that is the power of mentorship.
Mm.
Within that 4 months I talked about, you by 8 a.m. you come to lab, by 9 o'clock you go for a Japanese class. That class will finish by 1. By 1, you will return back to the lab. And then everybody is doing experiments. The professors will call you. You're not doing anything, just watch them with a notebook and pen. As they are doing, you are following them. They're doing experiments from one point to the lab of another point. They're investigating processes. They're reading papers. They're attending seminars. You go with them. You make no comments. Your own is observe, take note, and ask questions. The lab has deluge of chemicals for all kinds of molecular research, medical research, anything you want to do. Your job is know where the chemicals are located, take note of them, ask questions, attend seminars, ask questions for the whole 4 months before the exam. I'm talking about the power of mentorship. If you are going to some of the laboratories where you need some protective materials, like in the X-ray region, you'll be given that thing to wear and then you follow them inside there. You will do nothing. You don't supposed to do anything. Just follow them. The power of mentorship. If there's a paper they published about laboratory, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, that will help what you want to do, they'll give it to you to read. That's if you don't understand the procedure, you ask questions and they are willing to answer. So professors are not meant to be threats. They're not meant to be people who will scare you. Life was easier.
Yeah.
So that was
I could remember
what it
that.
was in
I
Japan.
could remember seeing that very collegiate atmosphere. Like you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference between a professor and a student in a
You
tea
would
room.
no.
Everyone is just there,
In short,
sitting, they just sat there and just
I
enjoying
told
their
you
tea or coffee together.
I told you that the lab or the department had over
So
50
we
researchers.
have a lot of people joining now. Welcome to the live. Thank you so much for joining. Sorry, you can continue, Prof.
So I had earlier told you that we have loads, about 50 people in the lab. And the way the medical school is arranged is not like you're in a particular department, you are floating, but you're attached to a lab. So some people are in pharmacology, some people are in medical biochemistry, some people are in surgery, some people are in orthopedics, some people are in medical microbiology, some people are in physiology. The same way I was in pharmacology, and that was a lab I was attached to. But we do every other thing floating. But that your lab is your basement. So if there's any problem, they'll come to that lab because that's your own home. But they would like to see you. So we proceeded. Talking about the interview process, a bit of link to what had happened prior to time. While I was serving, I remember we were called for an interview in Abuja at the Minister of Education, Federal Minister of Education. I remember in Abuja, I think in Jabi. So we went for that interview, and I think I did well. And then so I was selected by the Federal Minister of Education. So those of you who see Federal Scholarship Board and play with it, you don't need to play with this Federal Scholarship Board.
FSB. I wrote that exam.
Yes, FSB exam. I wrote the FSB exam of 2011 or so. And the implication of that is the FSB, I passed. So I was recommended to the Japanese embassy. We're about we're about 196. No, not 196 now, about 96 that were recommended to go to Japan. So when we were recommended, the Japanese embassy had to organize a new exam for us. So we went out and I wrote a second exam. That second exam, I also passed. I think I came number 2. The guy that's from the University of Jos, I think Dalong Deliop. Just give me a second, guys. I'm coming.
And now I'm working as a project scientist in the UK. Thank you. Okay, Prof. Nwibo, you can continue.
Yeah, so we did that exams. Out of 96 of us, my friend Dalong Deliop, I think he was in medicine then, if I remember, from University of Jos, was the first person. I was number 2 from the rest of Nigeria. And then there was another guy, what's his name now? From Edo State, from University of Benin. So he came third. Only 3 of us were selected. I remember leaving then. We left on 31st of March 2013 from Abuja, Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport in Abuja. I took on Lufthansa Air flight. I remember to Frankfurt, Germany, my first time in Europe, my first time in the air. We landed in Frankfurt. One key person. We landed in Frankfurt. From Frankfurt to Narita Airport in central Tokyo, one of the world's best. So as we landed there, the other is story now. I told you someone had come to pick me. And then it was the beginning of learning to write research proposals. Now, this is the difference between on outside and here. And I'm going to establish some difference. While here you are in medical school, for instance, and you start from year 1, you attend classes, you learn theory. Over there, it is not so. Over there, you do few, after we pass the interview exam, the first exam, you will do few courses. You do more practical. If you go to microbiology lecture and they teach you about the difference between bacteria and fungi, you will come to the lab, you will study it. In that way, passing the medical school Our passing the school is not just necessarily about what you score in the test. They're interested in your activity in the lab because
Mm.
they believe that what will drive development is practical, not theory.
Mm.
If Robert Hooke discovered whatever he discovered, it has ended. What we're talking about is what can I discover?
Just
What can you
ended
discover
up.
that?
What and so what? And so that's the thing. So what? So what?
Yes.
So like
For
that. So
instance,
what?
yes. In 2015, my supervisor, second supervisor anyway, Kasisa Sekimisi is my first. Second was Satoshi Omura. Satoshi Omura is the one that invented ivermectin. Ivermectin is a drug used in treatment
Whoa!
of river. That was my supervisor. Yeah, that's correct. Satoshi
Wow!
Omura, Kisato Tokyo. That's correct.
Wow!
So, what the Japanese will ask you, you said Faraday discovered electricity or whatever, whatever. Robert Hooke and Hooke's law. What has that contributed to us? What can you
So
discover?
what?
So
Yeah.
there was a drug we worked on in 2015, lysosine E. I think in stage 4 of clinical trials now. It'll be very soon to be used. It was in the quest of what can we discover that we got in contact with that drug and we isolated it from lysopactor.
Oh,
It will still be in use in years to come. Yes.
wow.
Lysosine E is effective against methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. And I was among those who worked on it in 2015 at the University of Tokyo School of
Do you
Medical
still have?
Pharmacology.
Do you still keep that connection there, like maybe visiting scholar or and stuff
What
like that?
what what are you saying? I might be going to Tokyo anytime from now. I'm in contact seriously with my
That's
supervisor because he called
amazing.
me
That's
that
amazing.
everybody with
I just
trend
wanted
has
to
disappeared.
I just wanted to chip in here that in the UK, just coming back to what you mentioned, that practicality.
Yeah,
There's something I learned when I
yeah,
came here, and I also took part in it. Coming here with a PhD from New Zealand, working in a synchrotron. They also have what is called on-the-job apprenticeship here. So you don't even need to go to a university. You can get your degree while working. So you get that experience. Let's say you go to a company, you are working, you're going to get your degree at the end of, let's say if it's longer, 5 years, but you will be paid salary and you're getting experience. So it's called on-the-job apprenticeship. And it's such hot cake here. And that's part of what we're talking about, the practicality. Yes, you go to school, you learn those things, but you are also embedding that knowledge back into your work. So that apprenticeship is very good. When I was working as a beamline scientist in the National Synchrotron in the UK, I saw that there was that gap between what we were doing, research, and then the so what. Okay, and so what? How do we commercialize these ideas? What's the real world impact? And so what? Why should I care about this? That's so what? I started looking into, commercial readiness level, technology readiness level, how to move those products or ideas to the marketplace. And then that was when I went ahead to start looking at business strategy. I did an apprenticeship in business strategy. I also went into project management. So we're going to talk about all that later when we're talking about career agility. Well, I love how you mentioned the fact that it's very hands-on, it's very practical, beyond just theory of things that happened years and years ago. I think it's your turn now
yeah.
to ask me
So
a question.
those yeah, so those are the issues. I think anyone who has a question at any point can drop it on
And
the
please, if you have any question
chat
at any
section.
point, just drop it in the chat. We'll answer it and then move on to the next. We have almost 20 questions in our cards. So
So
Professor Nwibo is going to
Chidinma,
ask me, and then I'll ask him that kind of rotational engagement. Yeah, okay.
doctor, let me also ask you. Let
Yeah.
me not don't worry, all of the stories will come back as we go on. With respect to your movement to New Zealand, how did that happen? And you also had a fund that without money, the kind of money that is why when the governor of Ebonyi State, sent some of our children to overseas, I was glad. I was glad
That's
because
good.
I know the cost of foreign education.
Human
If you don't
resource,
have,
human capital
yes, if
development.
someone like very important. So if someone like me had no money to probably be
Mm,
funded by global bodies, he wouldn't even
mm.
try. So how did you go with yours?
So people always ask me what took me to New Zealand, and if I'll be frank and fair, first and foremost was funding. So when I finished,
Okay.
my bachelor's was in zoology, and I majored in physiology. That was really what I loved. So zoology in University of Nigeria, Nsukka had different, how do I put it, specializations. There is parasitology, there's entomology. Parasitology is study of parasites, entomology, insects and their diseases and vectors and all. Then there is fisheries and fishery biology, and then there's physiology. So I specialize in physiology, which is function. Okay, how does the human body function? Function and structure in a way, even though it's not anatomy. So from
Oh,
doing my after my bachelor's, like you mentioned at the beginning of the live, I made the first class and I was the best graduating student in Department of Zoology. I was the best graduating student in the Faculty of Biological Science, and I was the third best graduating student in the whole university. So there was this policy that time to retain the best graduating student. I don't know if it's still existing now in UNN, but there was the
that,
policy
it does.
to keep
It
our
does.
best brains
It does.
back. So
I, I
I
still
never
exist this
applied
morning
for
because
job any other place. I could see myself in that research path. So I went for my National Youth Service Corps. And then after that, I put in the formality of, I'm interested in the taking up the automatic employment, and it was giving to me approval. So then I enrolled in my master's. That was the best logical next step thing to do. But I actually wanted to do my master's abroad. So my quest for going abroad started even while I was 7. In fact, before I submitted my thesis as an undergraduate, I was already looking at schools outside. Because somehow within me, I knew that the boundaries I wanted to push in science, the environment around me, we used to use our mouths to suck acid in the lab. There was no pipette gun. That's how um that's how primitive it was back then. I know that there's a lot of development that has happened, thankfully, but that was how it was back then. The boundaries I wanted to push. When I used to tell students in the synchrotron facility where I used to work that for me to see samples under a microscope, I had to go to the window to use ordinary light as a light source. We like even to the point of getting a lamp under the microscope, it was only few people who had that access. So going from that to using powerful, gigantic X-ray microscopes to get sub-Armstrong resolution of samples, that was me dreaming and pushing beyond what my environment could offer me. All right, so like I said, I did look for. Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, I'll come back. Practical aspects. Okay, I'm going to come back. I'm navigate through this hurdle of practical aspects, especially in science. I mean, lack of equipment. Our universities, polytechnic are full of theories. How do we break the boundary? I'm going to come back to this. Just give me a minute. So I started applying for scholarships. Oh my goodness, there was a story I told that time. I think Legit Nigeria, they carried that story. I applied to almost 1,000 scholarships. I wanted to push because what my dream, how do I say it? My environment could not carry my dream. So yeah, and that was what took me to New Zealand. I would say this frankly, without trying to put any hype or vibe. It wasn't necessarily that okay, New Zealand is a fantastic place. Like it's a very developed place. But if I'm going to say practically, what took you there? That was where I got funding. That was the best. That was where I got funding. That was good for me. Not just funding. I got full tuition. I got full upkeep. Everything that came with the travel. So yeah, I carried my bags and I went. So I would say what was the driver, because New Zealand is the end of the world, right? So you have to pass even Australia for 8 hours on the flight. So uh, after some failed attempts to secure something, maybe let's say in US or UK, and it's very competitive, right? A lot of people all over the world are applying for these same things. Professor Nwibo's surgeon took him to Japan, a very competitive process. So it's very competitive to get these things. I'm going to come back now and answer your question. How do we navigate through this hurdle of practical aspect studies, especially in sciences? I'm going to give you something that you can run with today. I'm assuming maybe you are a student or you are a lecturer. I don't know. But I'm going to give you a practical tip that you're going to run with. Something that can help you live beyond your environment is going to be learning. Okay, learning. So when I was back in Nigeria, one of the things I did was that I did not just depend on my environment. I also sought learning. Okay, I would go on YouTube. I would even download materials and start reading. Okay. Oh wow, X-ray diffraction analysis, only to get a result that has no trace of the Oh my goodness. Yeah, X-ray diffraction was one of the techniques that was available in the synchrotron. Where did you send this sample to? Was it to South Africa, or was it within? I know that, I think there's X-ray diffraction in is it UI or is it IT or one of those places? There is X-ray diffraction, one of those places. But to come back to the story, to come back to answering your questions, I would say if you are still in school and you want to push beyond, to you have to see beyond what your environment is offering you. Okay, you have to see beyond the practicalities of what your environment is offering you. You have to see beyond sucking pipettes. Okay, so you have to see beyond sucking what do you call it, acid with pipette. So I would say if you're a student, YouTube is a very good resource, or other learning platforms. Go on LinkedIn, see what people are doing, connect to people that are doing that research abroad. And if you are lucky enough to have people who are sharing what they are doing, that's a good way to break out of what your environment offers. Practically, if you are, let's say, in research, let's say you are an academic, a faculty, you would have to seek outside experience. Unfortunately, that is the reality we are facing in Nigeria now. So what I knew people were doing, what's that thing they used to do? You go 1 year. Some people were doing their masters, but they did the practical aspect of it in, let's say, Japan, or they went to UK or US or South Africa. They did, because some things, the dreams, the ideas you have, the techniques you have, cannot execute them, which is really, really disheartening. So I knew people who would get 1 year, maybe a grant or fellowship to just do 1 year or 6 months or 3 months in a lab outside. And sometimes they would even give you a certificate to say, okay, you came here so and so time. Another thing you could do is you can be the change where you are, which is very difficult because funding a research laboratory is very, very expensive. It's so expensive to do anything research. Chemistry, biology is expensive to fund those labs. Talking about microscopes, high-end microscopes, talking about pipettes, just to have media, buffers, all those things. Light, constant light. You're running a gel electrophoresis. What happens when the light goes off? Your protein separation just stops. So I would say that it's an infrastructure problem, right? So how does an individual push beyond that? What about grants? So I know of people who applied for funding. Let's say you can apply to, let's say, Wellcome Trust or Gates Foundation or any other funding, which is, in a way, I also know that based on the extent, like the current situation, what I witnessed when I was back in Nigeria, because I lectured in Nigeria before I moved to New Zealand. Sometimes there is a little bit of politics going on in universities where some people can get those grants, all right? And then you're not even allowed to either buy the equipment, or the equipment is bought and locked up because we don't want it to spoil. This is the only one that we have here. I would say that when you are born or raised in some environments, with the little time we have, I know this may not go down well with everyone. With the little time we have on earth, yeah, our time here is limited. I would always choose initially the path of least resistance, to at least be able to swim and not drown, so that my dreams do not drown. So I would always choose that. That's why you see people that are choosing to Japa, so to say. They chose a realistic path. We have how many years to live on earth? How much are you going to build as an individual to fight, to do this and that? By the time you're turning 30 and 40, you're tired. You've spent a huge amount of your energy, your quantum, doing things that were supposed to just be there. So I would say, work smart, choose the path of least resistance. When you see people that are applying for scholarships, who are going for fellowships abroad, they know what they are doing. One of the universities is in the north. Okay, yeah, because I know that they have an X-ray diffraction. So it is a systemic issue. So to say, it is an infrastructure problem, and it did not start today. And like I said, we all have a limited time to make our mark, to leave it. So please seek help, seek fellowship, seek mentorship. If you must leave and get, at least, you know how you say, you have to, if you are drowning, you have to save yourself first before you can save others. Okay, you can't be saving others while you are still trying to float. So save yourself first. Give yourself platform. For me now, for instance, when I came to the UK and I was working in the national synchrotron, I was trying to bring Nigerians here. I was in the sense that I was trying to help them get access to those microscopes. They would write proposal, I'll partner with them, and we'll do research together. That was my own way of contributing, because another thing I even noticed is this: your environment even limits the idea that you can come up with in research. Someone who has not seen a super resolution fluorescence microscope cannot even conceive those research ideas. So it was even limiting to the fact that these people are smart. Talent is universal, but because of your environment, it had that self-limiting, so to say, on what people could conceive as research ideas. My answer would be this: look for every means possible to find an environment that can fund or sustain your dreams. Okay. I think I'm going to go. I'll answer your questions. I'll answer Ezekiel. I'll answer your question next. Let me just go to the next one. Ask Professor Nwibo that question, and then we'll now go over to. I'll come back and answer your question. I'll come back and answer your question. Prof, you did a postdoc in Japan after your PhD, and then you now moved to the UK for another postdoc, if I'm correct. How did the research culture in Japan compare to the UK? And how do both compare to what we have in Nigeria? I think I know what we have in Nigeria, so I think we'll just stick to UK and Japan. We'll come
Well,
back to your
no,
question, Ezekiel. Yeah.
it's not just I also did some work in the US. It's not just about the UK and Japan, but there was a little mix. When I finished my PhD, I didn't do per se postdoc. I got, because of the level of work I did as a student and the level of commitment I had, I was made an assistant professor immediately, and I was to move from the University of Tokyo, where I was, to become an assistant professor at Tokyo University School of Medicine. So I moved,
Wow.
and the reason was simple: that my supervisor, Professor Kazuhisa Sekimizu, was retiring. I was the last postdoc, and I was the number 50th, the 50th
Wow.
PhD he supervised, the last.
That's a good
So he
mark to
was,
retire at.
yes, it was, I was the 50th, and I was the last. So he was to move to a new lab into a private school, Tokyo University private. The University of Tokyo, my alma mater, is a public institution and probably the best in Asia. So he wanted me to be around him, so he took me over, and then we
That's
worked
good.
for some few months there. We did very excellent work, and then I moved over to Osaka State University. You know, all that came with administrative positions. I remember acting as a HOD at Tokyo University and as a dean of medicine in Osaka State University. All that I did it silently. So when I moved to the UK, you were talking about UK. When I came to the UK, there was many things people didn't know. I didn't come really to the UK. I came to the UK for three things. One, there was a
Mm.
collaboration between Osaka University School of Medicine and the University of Central Lancashire School of Medicine. There was a research we were doing on COVID-19, and there were a team of 5 persons. I was the lead. Was sent to the UK from Japan. 4 Japanese,
I
myself.
see.
Yes, we were sent to go and do that work. That was what brought me to the UK.
I see.
That was what brought me to the UK. And being in the UK, I was in the UK for 2 years. Within that 2 years, I didn't just was doing that research. I was also
Mm.
teaching and studying. Yes,
Oh,
I was studying for
wow.
postgraduate. I was studying for a postgraduate degree in clinical medicine, and I got it
In the UK.
in the UK. Yes, I have a postgraduate
Wow.
degree in clinical medicine. I got it. That practically boosted my knowledge of medical practice and everything
Mm.
about clinical. Yes.
Amazing.
So it was easy for me to, having worked in medical line all the way, apart from Osaka, it was very easy for me to speak on any matter. And remember
Wow.
that, just as you said, the human brain is elastic.
Very,
What you
very.
can do depends on how much you can stress it. If you leave
Mm.
it dormant, if they ask you 1 plus 1, you don't understand what it is.
Let me
But when
just
you
quickly
stretch it,
mention. Let me just quickly mention here, just as Professor Nwibo is talking about what he has studied, I'm going to list the courses I have studied to be able to get to this level. I'm going to list, and Prof, I want you to also list your own. So I've done a bachelor's in zoology, I've done a master's in physiology, I've gone ahead to do a PhD in cardiovascular physiology, and then I've done an apprenticeship, 18 months apprenticeship in business analysis while working as a scientist in the UK. I've also done 3 project management qualifications to date, and I've done a mini MBA. Learning, there is no end. This is what has moved me from basic research. Like when I mean basic research, like, oh, how does this do this? to ideas that are commercial. We are working on drugs that can treat people, working on flying like working in an environment that they fly rockets to space, and we are still doing biopharma research in space. So now I'm serving as a subject matter expert in biopharma in microgravity. You don't get to that level if you don't know how science can be applied, which is biotechnology, and can be commercialized, which is business and finance. So you can see how all these things that I've done, physiology down to biophysics, and then learning business analysis and strategy, project management, and mini MBA, how all of them have shaped me creating a new career niche, so to say, combining 4 different disciplines: biology, physics, project, and business, to become a subject matter expert and a project manager, because I work as a PM, I work as an SME in the space sector now from the Synchrotron, because I've moved. So my point is this, which is why this Quiet Learner platform exists. To learning, there is no end. Life, the future of work is changing, and we're going to talk about this. So to learning, there's no end. I'm going to leave Prof to talk about his own learning movement to date. Yeah.
So the thing is, so we continued. By the time I finished at the University of Tokyo, I moved over. And there's one thing, maybe Chidinma, I don't know about me today, but many people who are close to me would know. One of the things I learned while in Japan is because of their limited English, I utilized the opportunity I had. Almost practically every paper that was written around me, I had contribution. So that really improved my literacy. And that is why most times today I write more than I even speak. And that probably necessitated the opening of this podcast. Because primarily when I opened the podcast, it was centered around medical communication. People see medicine as what you do in clinic. Yes, the clinic is one part of it. There is communication in medicine. You need someone in the village who does not or has never been to school to understand how decisions we make in clinics can affect lives. And one of the things I also found as a vacuum here was, just like in Japan, they couldn't speak English. So they needed an expert who can speak English. That really helped me because it pushed me to go beyond just the normal English we speak to understanding the language of scientific research, the language of clinical practice. Because, of course, the University of Tokyo is and still remains the 10th best clinical hospital globally, number 10. That's where my daughter was born, Deborah. So you had opportunities to push yourself beyond boundaries. You could do it from pharmacology. And if you want to attach yourself in radiotherapy or in surgery, you can go. They will allow you because you are part of them. All you need is to meet the head and say, I want to myself, I want to learn something new. Maybe for I want to understand the language of this place.
Yeah. That's really good.
Then we moved over to doing the degree in the UK in medicine and then an MBA in the United States. All that was happening once. Unlike, the problem we have is it doesn't matter how hard you work, you must know the place of resources, I think. Resources here includes not just money, but people. In our own part of the world, it is like everything is working for you to fail. Yes. In Nigeria, it's like everything is working for you.
Rigged against you, so to say.
Yes. In overseas, everything is working for you to succeed. That is why you can do 7 degrees in 7 years. All of them together. And nobody will stop you.
Yeah, and you can move disciplines. Nobody will say because you're a scientist, you cannot do medicine. Or you cannot do I was a scientist learning business projects. You can move disciplines, cross carpets, cross-cutting.
As far as because what matters is not what nobody cares. Except maybe you want to go and by the way, medical training in Japan is a bit different.
Yeah, unless you want to fly a plane.
Yes.
Or build a house.
From your first few years, from the first few years, you will choose whether you want to be in the clinic every day carrying stethoscope or you want to be a professor in the field of medicine, which is the part I took. If you want to be a professor in the field of medicine, you will build yourself in medical research. Everything about research in medicine you will know, but you will never go to clinic because they don't need you there. But whenever you go to the clinic, you want to remain there. You will never come to laboratory. You will never be a professor. You will never write any paper. I left this country a researcher and to return back, I knew what I wanted, and I think I got what I wanted. The rest is history. Now, one thing I must say is what I've seen overseas across, whether it's in Tokyo or in London or in California, is across these places, there's room for strong mentorship.
Mm.
You can't be doing masters, for instance, and you are struggling to secure equipment and materials for research. Your supervisor will be fully interested because your success is his success.
Yeah.
Just some days ago, Professor Kasisa Sekumizu, a biochemist from Stanford and my own first supervisor before Satoshi Omura, the one that discovered ivermectin, he sent me a message from Tokyo and said, Nwibo, he calls me Nwibo, since you left, everybody has graduated and moved on. And we still have lab and we have students, and I'm getting old. I think I need you to come, stay for some time and take care of the students, because I know you have the competence to do so. This is a white man talking to me, and he knows how we relate. He said, I can't wait to do good science with you. The reason is because when you walk wherever you are, walk with your heart out. Ask
Work ethic.
questions. Yes. You must come to a place of good work ethics. Don't do it. Don't do
Even
it
when
because
no
someone
one is
is
watching you,
don't do
just
it because someone is
do it.
research materials and products that they've developed over time. Place for building of knowledge, for creating research, and for development of the community. We don't do any of those here.
Okay, can we answer this question? Someone asked, where can we? Sorry, someone asked a question. How can you assist? Where can we would appreciate to get reliable sites to apply for the scholarships. I'll give a practical example. When I was looking for my scholarships, I went to scholarship positions and I think scholars for dev. And you don't even have to be on that website every single day looking for scholarships. What you can do is that you can set a how do you put it now, subscribe to their newsletter, and let's say 3 times a week the scholarships come to your inbox. You can set it to the country you want to go or globally, so in that way you are not always online doing an active search. You are just online doing a passive search, in that the how do you call it now, the emails come to you, the emails of the scholarships that are available come to your inbox. Okay, so that is one of the ways to do it. So I know scholarship positions and I know scholars for them, but having said that, this was almost 11 years ago, so I'm going to tell you to look at what people are using now. You can use AI to automate your search. I think you can build either agentic AIs or whatever to be able to automate how you receive the scholarship positions available. Another person asked me, how can you assist in getting fellowships? It hasn't been easy to get. I know and I feel your pain. I told you earlier when I started this live with Prof that I applied to over 1,000 scholarships here while I was in Nigeria before I got my 1 or 2 years. I got JICA in Japan together with my New Zealand scholarship, and I chose New Zealand. So yeah, you have to knock on those doors, keep knocking, keep knocking. And sometimes it may not be that you are not getting them because maybe you are not good, maybe a change of strategy. For instance, I think I'm going to refer you to Scholar Lynn, Mary Lynn. She used to do a lot of those blog posts on how to get a supervisor to respond to you when you cold email them and ask them for opportunities, the structure, how you should structure your email. So I think I'm going to go far back, look for her blog post, and put the link on this in the comment section of the video after the live on how you can get a supervisor to respond to you when you are trying to get fellowship, when you are trying to get PhD, postdoc, or a placement abroad. So the way I can help or support is by pasting so many links here and pointing you to places. People are doing this actively every day. They show up and tell you how to get scholarships, how to get fellowships. What I'm going to say is, if you've been trying and trying and it's not working, then maybe you need to look for someone who how do I put it, change your approach. Okay, there must be a reason why it's not working. AI is helpful these days. I believe me, if you go to ChatGPT and say, I want to, let's say, apply to so and so, can you find me examples of places and construct me a landing email, a pitch that is going to win, how do you put it, that is going to convert. There's so many things have changed. I was in this process over 11 years ago. Things have changed now. So please do you can, how do I put it now? Feel free to post in the community section of the Quiet Learner after this. You can actually post in my community section. It's open for everybody to ask questions. We can have that forth and back conversation. I can keep post. So you can just go to my post section community and say, hi, Dr. Chidinma, or hi, Chidinma. You can call me Chidinma, it's fine. Or hi, the Quiet Learner. I will need help on this. Is just state your problem, and then I can shower you with those links, point you to the right places, and give you actionable insights on how you can land those scholarships and those fellowships. Okay, please feel free to use the community section of my YouTube channel. Post what you want, make it such a way that when I come to answer you, I'm going straight to the answer, not hi, this is what I want, this has been my problem, and this is where I would want you to step in. Okay, Prof, can we go to the next question, please, if you don't mind?
So what I was thinking is, you were in life sciences.
Yeah.
Particularly, I knew you as a zoologist, and then you moved on to the biophysics at the UK Synchrotron. The first
Yeah.
question is, what is Synchrotron? What do they do, and why did you move? Because that sounds like a high-tech national facility
It
in
is.
the UK.
So, in fact, today I did write an article on LinkedIn and on Substack and on Facebook on what made me to move. So, when I was in New Zealand doing my PhD, my research was in cardiovascular physiology, but I was using super resolution, high end microscopes to be able to look at how heart proteins, cardiac proteins change in diabetes and disease. So, while I was doing that, I noticed that
Did you did you
actually,
did you, did you study troponin?
yeah, troponin I.
Okay, very good.
So
Cardiovascular physiology.
I so I was like, okay, I think apart from the biology, which was like second nature, I did love it, but there was something challenging there. Physics, the microscope. So I was using high super resolution microscopes, and I started learning. I was like, okay, I would like to learn the behind the scene. How does this microscope work? How can I build it? How can I take it apart? How does fluorescence work? I started teaching myself those things, and I realized, okay, yes. Biology, I've been doing it for how many years? But I think I want to take on this physics element into my journey. So I started learning how to build a microscope. I taught myself everything. And after my PhD, towards the end, it was clearer to me where I wanted to go next. I did not want to become a postdoc or a PI just doing one research. I wanted to use that microscopy skill that I had taught myself to support a lot of research. And that's why I moved to the synchrotron. Now, when I was in synchrotron, I worked on 100 different research, different types, whether talking about microbiology or immunology or plant science or COVID. I worked on vaccines. I worked on even cardiovascular. I worked on inflammation. I worked on it, diverse pollution, environmental pollution, and how they affect cells, nanoparticles research, drugs, diagnostics. So using that microscope, so it made me to kind of like have a broad range of experience. So to answer your question, what is a synchrotron? A synchrotron is simply a giant microscope. So look at here, you have like it's a very circular building, so to say, and I'm trying to explain it in a way that is can be communicated or conveyed. And you accelerate electrons to the near speed of light. And when you accelerate them, they gain speed, near speed of light, like I said, and then at different magnets, at different how do you call it now, angles, there are magnets there. And well, in physics, what happens when electrons are bombarded or bombarded with magnets? You generate X-ray. That's the physics behind cathode rays. The X-ray you go for, chest X-ray you go for in the hospital. So it was just that in a giant scale. But what also went ahead to happen is that we did not just have one beam line. We had, I think, 33 beam lines. And what we were doing is that we were selecting the X-rays at different energies, okay? At, let's say, 500 electron volts, 1,500 electron volts. Different beam lines had different energies of X-rays. And then we're using them to study different types of biological samples. Some beam lines were studying bones, things that were like 10, let's say 10 millimeter thick or as big as a human bone. Other beam lines were studying things as tiny as a cell, which was the beam line. I was just single cell, and we needed to get to high resolution. So in a nutshell, a synchrotron is simply a giant microscope. You can do fluorescence, you can do spectroscopy there, you can do crystallography there, you can do microscopy and imaging, small angle scattering, X-ray diffraction, And so have you. So even electron microscopy, not necessarily with the synchrotron, but we had a building for electron bioimaging. So life working there was very, very productive for me. In fact, I would always talk about the synchrotron till tomorrow, because it was in the synchrotron I learned about business and, doing a mini MBA and apprenticeship. So the synchrotron that I went to BBC almost 3 times talking about my research. I went to the US so many times. So the synchrotron that I published in Nature, Science, Cell, and also the synchrotron was a springboard for me in so many ways. In that, after when I felt my stay there was coming to an end, I was asking that what next question? How can I push again beyond the borders of science? How can I extend these boundaries that I've learned here? How can I go on to now use these skills to now move these research ideas going to the markets? How do I move away from just research that ends in publications and that's it? How do these research start solving real world problems? And that was now what took me next to the space sector. So yeah, that was what my stay was like in the synchrotron. So I'm going to ask you the next question, Professor Nwibo. Many Nigerian university lecturers are watching us today, and if a lecturer in Nigeria wants to start collaborating with global labs like the ones that we've worked in, what practical steps should they take towards achieving those collaborations? Please drop your questions if you have questions in the chat. Okay, thank you, Prof.
Well, the first thing I'll talk about is, I think it was Exodus chapter 11. Is it Exodus now or Genesis? It's Exodus, where they were trying to build to go and meet God. That was a project. That was a project. That was a task. And they were communicating. And God know that this thing, if it doesn't confuse these guys, they will surely complete their mission. So I needed to confuse them.
Mm,
Why do I say that? I'm saying that every project has a language. That's where I'm going. Every project has its own language. If you are in the university system, the job of a lecturer has its own language. Politicians have their language. Yes. Engineers have their language. Medical doctors.
mm,
That's why you write paracetamol, you write P, and then you car line straight. It becomes paracetamol. That's the language of those in clinics. So we have our own language. So the university has its own language. What is the language of education of university? One is research. Okay. So platforms that are critical, something like open access platforms, ResearchGate, if you want, Google
mm,
Scholar, Google Scholar. You must know what the nitty gritties. Publishing
mm,
platform, like PubMed. You must understand that journals are part of your life every day because of the career that you've
mm.
chosen. You must publish. And when you start publishing, don't worry about the high impact factor papers. Just make publications as much as possible. But there is a proviso. The proviso is, when you do research, don't fake it. Let it be real.
Mm,
The biggest
mm,
challenge of an average Nigerian lecturer, I will tell you what it is. The biggest challenge
mm.
of average academic, particularly the current generation, is one thing. That thing is mentorship, mentorship.
So you feel
Every
we
field
have
requires,
there's a mentorship gap.
not just there is a gap. It's not a gap. It's a vacuum. Gap is a small space. Vacuum is a bigger one. When you go to, oh, by the way, this question is very crucial. You know, when you go to New Zealand, what was your biggest worry in terms of biggest failure or learning curve in the course of your PhD, and
Okay.
how did you go about winning those challenges?
But first and foremost, when experiments don't work and you expected to repeat them again and still expect a different outcome. So I would say failed experiments. I did not really know how to be patient back then. I thought if I do it once, it's going to work. Oh, why will it not work? But experimental failures, repeating it, technical repeats, being patient, spending those long hours in the lab, and doing that. So that was for me, that was the major learning curve. And also working in a place that things were very, very standard. There were standard operating procedures. Things were standard. There were safety protocols in the lab. You can't eat in the lab. You can't wear your lab coat out of the lab. Being in that structured SOP sort of environment, ISO regulated, health and safety, COSH, and all. So learning all those languages, knowing hazardous goods, where to store them, because you have to be compliant. There's no two ways about it. People will tell you off, and you need to do it because it's for your safety, their safety. So there's something we say: safety is everyone's responsibility. You're talking about things that are combustible, that are flammable, that are toxic, that are carcinogenic. You have to. So failed experiments and compliance. Those are the two major things that I would say were really, really challenging. So I'll go to the next question. Funding is the biggest hurdle for African researchers, like we've seen in the comment section here today. From your own experience, Prof, what are the 3 top mistakes that applicants make when applying for international postdocs or PhD opportunities?
Well, when applying for postgraduate studies, I would say that the three, and by the way, the point you raised on the issue of compliance to protocols and
Mm,
the regimentation of the experimental or research process outside this
mm,
country, I think it's both are the same and similar all over the globe globally.
mm,
So on the question you're asking me about hurdle for errors that we make when applying for postgraduate
mm,
studies funding,
mm.
I will classify them into technical errors and common errors.
Okay,
But I'll just give 3 examples. One of them is the issue of writing generic letterheads or letters.
I see.
Okay, you're writing a letter and you're addressing 70 professors at once because you will think that the more you cover, the better for you. No, it is not so.
Okay.
It is not so. Your letter must be tailored to
I,
whoever you're
I did I
addressing it
did
to.
make that mistake, to be fair. I did make that mistake.
Imagine writing a letter to a professor and they're writing dear professor. You've not mentioned his name anywhere. This man has a name. Their Professor Chidinma, their Dr. Chidinma is better than their professor.
Mm.
Their Dr. Chidinma,
Because their
Department of
professor can go to anywhere, anybody.
anybody.
In fact, I even made one of the mistakes I even made was copying different PIs in the same lab, in the same emails. I made that
Very good.
mistake too.
And let me tell you what they will do with you. They will just take your this thing and talk to
The
each other.
tea room.
They'll have a meeting about you. And they say once, they say, I saw that letter too. They'll not say, is that? No, she's not serious. She's not dedicated. If you're dedicated, how can you be writing one letter to 70 persons? No
But
difference.
these
That
are
is number one.
mistakes
So
that we make. That's why we are talking here, to tell people who are
yeah.
applying not to continue making those mistakes.
So they will not discuss it.
Mm.
If you have, for instance, in Nigeria, if you apply for the PTDF, it's focused on managing local economy and oil production in the country.
Okay.
That is
Mm.
their own. If you're applying to a school of medicine, every lab, every department has a research target. I worked on drug on pharmacology, molecular mechanism of drugs, drug actions, drug
Mm.
resistance. I worked on drug discovery. Everything about me was drug. But at every point in time, even year after year, the topic might even change differently. And
Okay.
imagine that you're coming to join me in the lab and you can't even identify what I'm working on at that point. It means you're not ready yet. And how do you identify that? You can only identify it if you had read through my work. There's a professor that you will write today, and you're mentioning the work he published 5 years ago. The man has gone beyond there in research.
Mm.
So, yes, he has gone beyond there. You are quoting, if you quote, for instance, one of the work I did, I remember, is on use of silkworm for evaluation of drug candidates. If you're writing
Mm.
me on that now, you're wasting time because I've gone into drug
That's
resistance
true.
and
That's true.
bacterial pathogenicity.
That's true.
So it's only when you read year after year, you see publications. This man began from here. He has gone beyond there. He's somewhere, he's somewhere, he's somewhere. It is the
Mm.
current interest that you should address and how you fit
Mm.
in. But you can never know the current interest till you write, till you read. So if you're not a reader, you don't read papers. So if I want to
Mm.
come to your lab, I will be sure to read what you are doing at that
Yeah, and
moment.
almost all universities have a lab page. They have a lab research page for PIs to where they list all their qualifications, their research. So there's always a lab page. I reckon. Yeah.
So the other one is the issue of CV, and that is where the common mistakes come. The issue of CV, the way we format our CV sometimes are poor. For instance, you are preparing a CV, and they say, when were you born? You say May 7, 1998. Nobody wants to know the exact date you were born, for goodness sake. It does not add or remove anything. If you're 27, you're 27. If you're 28, you're 28. telling us you were born by 1 a.m. or 1:50 a.m. 22nd of May 7, 1998, it was a Wednesday, is of no academic relevance. Okay? Telling us that you have 20 children. That one is for chieftaincy title in your village. It has no international relevance.
So what you're trying to say is the way CVs are, like there's some information that are in the CV of people that should
That
not be
shouldn't be
there.
there.
Okay. Okay.
And if there is a gap in your CVs, gap means, let's say for our sisters, you finished from school, maybe you did your master's, maybe you worked in a research lab and then you got pregnant. And you spent 2 years to raise the baby before you now came back to work. A researcher would like to know why that gap existed.
Mm.
If you leave it empty, what were you doing at that point? Because overseas, not like Nigeria. If you in Japan, for instance, 6 months after you graduate, the police will look for you. What are you doing? The government will first of all write to you, asking you, we noticed you finished your BSc, you did the graduation last October, and this is already May. You've not got a job, you're not doing anything. We've never seen you in government office saying that you need a job to work on. What is going on?
Mm.
So those gaps must be explained. So what am I saying? Curriculum vitae must be properly formatted. You must read the current papers of those you are going to work with and find a loop in it. A loop is a gap, a hypothesis, a theory, something you want to work on.
Mm.
If you're not interested, don't go for the sake of it. Make sure you're interested and devote your time. And let me warn, in the age of AI, some of us who are very funny, we know how to detect AI written materials. So if you must use AI, make sure you sit down to make adjustments. If not, well, once we notice that a proposal was written by AI, just throw it into the dustbin and watch ahead.
All right.
Now, the issue of whether you have the issue of whether you have 100 things like publications, 100 publications before you start applying for a PhD. It's another issue. I think Chidinma will address that. Go ahead, Dima.
Oh, okay. How important are publications? It depends
Yeah.
on where you are going to, I believe. So for some schools, it may not be important to them. So for instance, when I was going to New Zealand for my PhD, publication was not a criteria. However, if you have it, if there are 10 people being considered, it can make you stand out, right? So if 10 people are being considered, all of them have a first class, all of them have
So,
that have gone
sorry,
for conference.
Dima, sorry to stop you. I must apologize. There's
No,
something that
it's
came to
okay.
my mind I wanted to say because it's connected
Okay.
to what I'd said. Imagine you're
Yeah.
writing a foreign professor a letter and you're saying, Dear Daddy, my daddy, you know that because you want to sign like an African. He's not your father. He doesn't care a bit about being your father. He's interested in science. Don't go make that mistake. Oh, mommy, I know I'll be very humble when I come. You turn to my second mother. Oyibo people know they think like that. They not get your time. Don't pamper them. Don't lobby them. Go straight to point. Demonstrate knowledge. Demonstrate scholarship. Demonstrate
Mm.
ideas. Show why there is linkage and there is vacuum that you need to fill. You want to do research. Damn it. Don't go calling them dear daddy, dear mommy. You know they're the best thing to have happened to us after I get bread. It doesn't work. Go ahead, them.
Okay. Yeah, what was I talking about? I was talking about publication. So if you have it, it does help to make you stand out. It gives that competitive advantage. However, it's not usually required for UK schools. In New Zealand, if you have it, fine, it gives you an edge. In the US, I'm not sure it's required. I think even in the US, I don't think it's required. So is publication okay? Yes. Does it help? Yes. Is it compulsory? No. I hope I've answered the question. Okay, so I'm mindful of the time. We've spent almost 1.5 hours. So we're going to skip immigration because while we were talking about so many things right here, we've already talked about immigration in one way or the other. If you're just joining, please do well to after the live, you can go back and watch from the beginning up until
If
now.
we if we Dima, if we skip immigration, I wanted you to talk about the global talent visa in the UK.
Oh, is that where it is under? Okay. Okay.
I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
I
Okay.
want you to
So
just describe it. I will make just few additions. And the
that
reason
was
for
my
that is
that was supposed to be my question to you. Okay, so let's briefly talk about global talent visa in the UK. So let me ask you the
yeah.
question actually. All right. So thank you for pointing that out. And then I think that's the major thing for us there, right? And then we can let me just go through the question cards. What's your advice for Japa? I think when we talk about global talent visa, we can now weave in those who want to leave Nigeria. What's their advice? Okay, so Prof, I'm going to ask you. Let's talk about UK global talent visa. I was endorsed for it, and you were also endorsed for it, and it completely changed my own trajectory as well. So for those who are listening to us today, welcome. Who are highly skilled, migrants, teachers, workers, students, and what is this global talent visa, and how can they position themselves for endorsement by the UK endorsing bodies for the Home Office to give them the visa?
Chidinma, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I didn't. At a point, it cut off.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I said let's talk about the UK Global Talent Visa. I was endorsed for it, and you were also
Okay.
endorsed for it, and it completely changed our lives and my own life at least, the trajectory of my research and my career. So for those who are listening to us today who are highly skilled, so what is this visa, and how can they position themselves for endorsement by the endorsing bodies for the Home Office to give them this visa?
Okay. I'll just make few attempts and then I think you also make contributions.
Yeah.
Now, the Global Talent Visa, as Chidinma rightly pointed out, is a visa
Mm,
for experts. Okay. Expert means as basic as having a PhD, you are qualified.
okay.
What does it involve? It is science, it is arts, it is technology. Okay. And a basic requirement is assuming you having a PhD is one on the academic side, but having a special talent. Let's say you are a singer and they have a lot of your work in the internet or your song all over the world. You can present that as a material and you supply your evidences and they look at it. For us who are in academia, if you're in
Mm,
academia, a lecturer, PhD is a requirement.
mm,
They might not state it obviously, but it's an unwritten conditionality. It's an unwritten conditionality plus your publications. So anybody who has a PhD is qualified. If you're a singer, you're a footballer, you have something you're doing that is technical, not really connected with having a PhD. You also have an appropriate endorsing body to endorse you. For us,
mm.
I think the Royal Society endorsed mine. I don't know who endorsed for Chidinma, but it's still
Same
the
here.
same procedure. You supply everything that you have. You have a PhD, you have some works you've published, you have some books you've published. Like me now, even the work I do on dogs that can be supplied as an evidence that this is who I am. Okay, so using that, the other one is I need to have someone in the UK who would make a reference for you. Maybe a
Yeah.
lecturer, maybe someone in your field, for instance. Maybe you're a singer. Maybe you know a singer in the UK who can endorse you. Maybe you have a business skill. Yes, business is also part of it. Maybe you own a business. You also have somebody in the UK who can also endorse you. And endorsement is nothing. Endorsement means I've known this person.
Mm,
This is what we've done together. This is what he does, and I know him. I know
mm,
that he's coming to contribute to the UK economy. Let
yeah.
me tell you, the Global Talent Visa is a methodology deployed by the developed world. It has a brother in UK, US, and even in Japan. There's a brother. They have something similar like that. It is all about getting the best. The advantage of that visa is one, you don't need to get any employment in the UK, for instance, to be endorsed.
Mm,
You don't need. You can do doing a private business, and then there are fees, stipulatory fees you need to pay, and they're all defined, and you pay them. But the key point is that if you have a PhD, you can actually migrate to the UK without knowing anybody, without getting a job. It's possible. I said so
yeah.
through the global
Yeah.
talent. Chidima, go
Yeah.
ahead.
As long as, to add to what you've said, you don't need to have a job. Just all you need to do is have an academic here who knows your work and is in your sector
Yes,
to be able to
yes, sir.
endorse you. That you are maybe you are they call it global talent, showing exceptional promise or exceptional talent in that category. All right. So to add to what you've said, global talent is in different sectors. So you have academia or research, you have Tech Nation, that is those in tech, digital technology, fintech, whatever. We have even for those in fashion and designing. I know a friend who was applying for that. So there are different aspects or different categories of global talent visa. Now, why is it important? Like Prof mentioned, you can come to the UK. Sorry, you can stay in the UK without the need to even have a job. You can you don't need to have a job to stay. Um, depending on the global talent it is. Let's say if it's for academia, you can actually be in another country, and after 3 years, you still get your indefinite leave to remain, which is your permanent residency. It fast tracks your time to citizenship. Okay, so if it takes others 5 years to get ILR, indefinite leave to remain, that is permanent residency, it would take you, a global talent visa holder, 3 years if you are in academia and some other ones. And technician, I think technician is still 5 years, but you get the gist. You don't need a job, you don't need to be earning anything, as long as you just prove that you have earned for once in that field. When it's time for a permanent residency, you will get it. So it's a good visa. On my own path, it shortened my path to permanent residency to just 3 years. Okay, so that's what I have to add for Global Talent Visa. Again, if you want clarification on Global Talent Visa, please feel free to use the community or just drop the question in the comment section of this live after the live, and I'll be able to send you the links from the Home Office website, the gov.uk website, for the field that you want to be endorsed in. Again, also feel free to use the community section of the Quiet Learner or Dogs Are the Sensei podcast and ask your questions, and I'm sure we'll be able to point you to the right path. Okay. Is there any other thing? So
Yeah,
I'm going to ask.
yes.
I'm going. So yeah.
There is a little stuff I want to mention.
Okay.
Let me say this to Nigerians who are listening to me and who will watch this many years, many years, even if after we are not here. I've lived in the UK, I've lived in Japan, I've lived in the US. And this is my advice. If you know that you have no driving need, you just want to run away from the country, make sure when you are going outside this country, outside Nigeria, that you have something you are going for. This is very important. You're going to work, that's okay. You're going to school, that's beautiful. Just not just I want to run away from the country. Because when you run away, it should be,
Purposeful immigration. Yeah.
yes, just make sure you are intentional about it. Not just because I want to run away. You know why? Because without a
Mm,
purpose on your mind, you will run into
mm,
trouble. Oh.
I
Yes.
see.
One of the beautiful things I learned staying overseas is not a certificate. I say this anywhere I go. It is the exposure it gave me. The way
Mm.
most people in Nigeria see
Mine is the Quiet Learner. Yours is Doxa the Sensei. I wanted to
somebody says,
ask, yeah, Doxa the Sensei. For me, I started mine as a way to share most of the things that I've learned that have helped me so far to pivot to move in my career and all. I wanted to ask, what's motivated you to start your channel, and what should anyone going from here learn? Like briefly, what, just maybe one sentence, what was the motive?
the motive was simple. I found out that there are a lot of misinformation,
Okay.
disinformation, misinformation in our system.
Okay.
In short, the need began from my role as a provost.
Okay.
Yes, it began from there. Because I found that most of our students, the common information that they need to have is hidden
Mm.
from them and it
Mm.
transcends to the society.
So it's
It's
not
hidden from them.
accessible.
It's not access. The right information is not accessible. What is available is a lie. And malpractice till they leave the university. And maybe one day you are caught and then you are dismissed from the university without knowing that you were not properly taught. So my target was to build a platform where I can get people who are experienced in the field to give us accurate, dependable information. And being in the area of medicine, it made it even far easier. There are some issues around certain diseases, certain ailments, certain mechanics that people need to understand at public health level, but they are not properly educated.
Mm.
So I felt
Mm.
that using my connection and reach, which I know I have across the country and beyond,
Yeah.
I can get experts. I'm not a lawyer, it's not my field, but I know I can reach up to 4 or 5 sons I'm not a politician, but I know I can bring in senators, even governors, to the platform to talk to our people about issues that matter. And when they come, I will tell them, you're not coming to talk to me, oh. You're talking to people who don't know. And I'm going to ask you funny questions and you must answer me. If you don't want to come, don't come. That's the point. So it's about educating our people. It's about communicating effectively. People will think it's about money. There's no money. I don't make money out of it. But it is more of getting our people. And the beautiful thing I must say is that since I began over a month ago, the reception has been massive. The followership has been massive. If I say it's not up to 2 months we started, it's like we've been there for ages. But if I look at number, even sometimes I go to places, they say, is that not that prof? That's always on the media.
And that's
It is not the
that's when we talk about meaningful work. Like, so at a
yes.
point you move beyond working just for yourself. You're
But,
now
but
doing it for people.
by the way, people might think, did I do mass communication? No, 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 no. I've never done anything in Faculty of Arts apart from borrowed courses.
Okay.
So it
Amazing.
is all about impact. It's all
Impact.
about impact. And that is why we say we share the thoughts and the voices of the wise. Anybody that comes on my platform, even if you're a child, you must be smart. There must be something unique about you. And if people who watch us go through our platform, the Dogs Like This as a podcast, if you watch when we introduce our guests, you will know that everybody is unique. Even those who are still in the university, when they talk, you know that they have something upstairs. Because for you to come here, I must rate you and know who you are for you to come. That's the kind of society we want to build.
Amazing. Okay, thank you. So I've learned a lot because for me it's been a while. I've not really been integrated in the, I mean, I left the country 2015. That's like 11 years ago, and I visited like
Yeah.
4 times or so. But to
Yeah.
say like I'm not working there, I'm not live. So hearing all these challenges firsthand, what's happening. So I would like to ask before I wrap up, where do you think those in the diaspora can come in? Because it
A
seems
lot.
like
A lot.
okay.
A lot. A lot. And I'll make reference to one of our podcasts. And that is the Power of the
Okay.
Diaspora. It was released on, is it 23rd of last month? About 8 days
Mm,
ago.
mm,
The Power of the Diaspora. Yes. We there was a brother that came in from Germany and he came to the studio. Then as a matter of necessity, not to excise the diaspora from our national deliberations and discussions. The diaspora must be included on issues. Their opinion must be sought because they contribute a lot. And they're the one that will define the parametric arrangement of this country. The reason is because they will speak from a point of view of experience. Chidinma, you know as well as I do, there are some things you will never know by reading books. You will know them by experiencing them. You are a mother, so you have children. I can never know the pain of labor. It doesn't matter the amount of books in gynecology that I read.
yeah.
But my wife knows. My wife
Yeah.
knows. Because it's
Mm,
experience. It doesn't matter the
yeah.
amount of books in gynecology I will read, I will never know. The same thing with national building. There are some things we will only theorize. We will never know to get the right people to redefine things in this country. It happens everywhere. It affects everything. So we must rearrange our country for the sake. For me, I always tell people, I'm no longer fighting for myself. I'm not. I'm just looking at those who will depend on me and those who will look up to me and those that my indecision will directly or indirectly affect if I fail to speak up.
Mm,
We must change the parametrics of this country. We must.
mm. As well. Thank you so much everyone for joining. Please
Thank you
remember
for
to drop your
thank you.
question in the community question on how to get reliable sites. Can you I said to use scholarship positions or scholars for dev, and you don't even have to go there to actively search for scholarships. You can tell them to send you newsletters to your inbox, and then those scholarship positions, so sometimes it comes twice a week or 3 times a week to your inbox. So scholarship positions, scholars for dev. And now there is AI. You can automate this process. It tells you positions, tells you how to apply, how to position yourself. Again, it requires intentionality. Like I said, I applied to a whole lot of them. And if you go back to watch the video, Prof mentioned what not to do when you are applying for those scholarships. All right. So on this note, I'm mindful of time. I need to take care of family. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Prof, for yeah making us to have this conversation on Labor Day. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chidinma. Thank you. God bless you.
Bye. Bye.
And thanks to everyone.